Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome to the 34th audio chat on the Q News Patriot Rumble Channel series. I am the Q News Patriot. My name is SG Anon. Today, I get to come to you checking back in with our friends over at the Former Feds group with a fascinating and powerful roundtable evidencing the things that have happened to humanity out there in the world. The conspiracy theorists, as the terminology has been sort of flounced around and touted in the public space, are sort of rocking it out at about 117 and 0 in this process post-COVID pandemic 2020 to the present day. And the realities of the things that have happened out there in our world are really beginning to sink in to the mass consciousness space with individuals like Tucker Carlson, with an audience of hundreds of millions of people discussing medical malfeasance, malpractice, certainly irresponsibility in the medical establishment. And of course, the Former Feds group is dialed in specifically on where that irresponsibility actually crosses over into nefariousness, into intentionality, where essentially where malice sort of enters into the equation. And that's something I think that is slowly gestating in the public consciousness. And it's important we have these conversations through this process. Today, I have the honor of bringing Mr. Andy, Mr. David, and Ms. Charlene, in addition to Gail, onto the program to give their testimonies as eyewitnesses and personally affected individuals to this concept of coordinated medical murder and malfeasance. Without further ado, Ms. Gail, everyone, thank you for joining us. So, Ms. Gail, I wanted to go ahead, if we could, and sort of tee up a bit of a roundtable discussion. I'd like to go through everyone's personal testimonies first, but the very first thing I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is to sort of cover how everyone intersected with the Former Feds, and then lead into, we'll start with Andy first. After that, lead into a discussion of personal testimony about how this journey has transpired for everyone on the call.
Sure. Let me go through a little bit of that. First of all, I do want to tell people this is still happening, so we're not over it. I had 3 calls last week alone to help save people's loved ones from the hospital. So every week we're getting calls where people are in the hospital, they need help, they need advocates for their loved ones. So we are not this is not ended, it has not slowed down, it is still happening. The only difference now is it is the vax injured that are going into the hospital for things other than COVID. They're going in with neurological stuff or strokes or heart attacks, testing positive for COVID, getting remdesivir, getting the midazolam and all the other drugs, and being basically executed in hospitals. So be on your guard. Be on your guard because it's still happening. The way that Charlene, Andy, and David connected with the Former Feds is kind of the way everybody else did. Somehow, either through social media or podcasts or what have you, they found our COVID Humanity Betrayal Memory Project at chbmp.org and saw stories and submitted their story and did an interview and connected with us on our support groups and our citizen task force and all of that. And so that's how we've come to know each other, is through that shared experience of the medical murders. And it becomes almost almost a second family, if you will, because we're all working towards the same goal. That's ending this this Holocaust, this hospital Holocaust, and getting accountability for our loved ones. So that is how we all came together. There's almost 1,300 stories in our database right now, and it's growing. The last time I was on your show, over 100 people put their stories in that listened to you. That was absolutely amazing. And 3 lawyers reached out. So
Remarkable.
yeah, it was remarkable. I've never seen anything like it, that kind of reach. So that was great.
Well, it's truly an honor to serve as the vessel and the channel for things like that, because this I think is some of the most important work, right? This is akin to stopping the deportation of individuals away from their communities in 1937. And I
Mhm.
think that's exactly the situation we find ourselves in as humanity. And so, actually, sort of along that line, I'd like to establish how each of you arrived here, starting with Mr. Andy, if we could. Welcome to the show. What brought you to this journey, and how has this affected you and your personal walk and family?
Well, thank you for letting me be on your show. Yeah, it's a great question. Well, like everyone else, I've I was affected by COVID in a pretty serious way, and my family and I, my mother, father, and I were in the same proximity of each other, and we all got sick with COVID at the same time. And um, my dad was a Baylor doctor at the actual Baylor that actually killed him, and he helped with that brand, build the brand. And he was at the otolaryngologist, head and neck surgeon since 1984, and president of the staff until 2001 at the same hospital that brutally murdered him. But in a nutshell, in March of 2021, Baylor Scott and White violently ended my father's life in front of me and my family while I was threatened and assaulted by the police. And the administrator that orchestrated it ran out of Texas for a while. I guess out of just worried about what happened or something. But I informed Arkansas, where he landed, his employer there, and now he's back in Texas trying to act like it never happened. So he keeps jumping around now after what he did. And there's a lot of bad things that happen in this hospital in addition to just me. But in a nutshell, I made a website with an executive summary about it, deathatbaylor.com. And if you want to read the full story, full synopsis of what happened, I highly recommend you go there. This happened on American soil. It happened in an American hospital. And I'm still really shocked and blown away that this happened to my dad, of all people. The nurse that violently ended his life is no longer in the state of Texas, and from what I understand, is actually not a practicing nurse. She let her license lapse in the state of Texas. She has a license that's currently active in Ohio, but from my understanding, is not playing nurse right now. So, which is interesting to me. So, uh, it was probably one of the worst experiences I ever experienced in my life. And the police are now trying to cover it up after I put signs out everywhere with my website plastered all over town. Uh, the police, Grapevine Police, which is who I went to first, they bounced me around all over town with different forms of law enforcement to get a investigation going, and it went nowhere. Instead, they knocked on my door saying, "Be careful where you put your signs. Your First Amendment rights are limited," and all this other jazz. So it got them nowhere because I went on social media and started being very aggressive about that. And to my surprise, even after having a sit down with Baylor, they're just kind of letting me do what I want. They're ignoring me, and I guess they're just hoping I go away or something. But this is a very serious matter, and they know they screwed up. And I don't know what else to do other than just be very public about this. The whole idea behind why I'm doing this is to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And the accountability system that's there right now is absolutely something is missing. There's something missing in the formula here. There needs to be better accountability. So hopefully that my website can do that. My story can add to this narrative. And I think it's time for something to change soon. So, but that's what brought me to former feds. And Gail is a very dear friend of mine. She's great. And I ended up being the social media director for former feds, and I enjoy it very much. And I'm hoping we can continue to grow. So, but there's my story.
Well, I hope indeed that you do continue to grow. And
Thank you.
Mr. Dobson, your story, I think, sort of has a similar flavor along the lines, certainly the same echoes and essences. Do you mind to share just a moment how you were brought into this fold?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, after my son was murdered, I just went to social media and just started posting about what happened. And eventually some random Twitter user provided a link to not former feds, but another group called Protocol Kills. And then from there, I got introduced to former fed, and that's how I met the former feds group.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and being willing to discuss the things that have happened here. And I understand it's extremely painful, and my deep apologies to you for your loss and to each of you for all of your losses. Miss Charlene, I think that your situation sort of has the same echoes and essences, does it not?
Yes. So how I found former feds, I mean, for months I knew something wasn't right in the hospital. And I just kept looking around social media, like everybody's mentioning. And, when my stepdad died, there was a lot of, we had to think about the financial. So I started, canceling things. And I went to Epic Times and I went to cancel that. And before I went to cancel it, I saw this story about Gail and the whole thing. And I was just like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And sorry, it's just been a crazy week or years. But thank God I found Gail and former feds. And I jumped in the fight with everything I had. And I'm now the New Jersey State Chair for former feds. And we are fighting like hell here to get the word out and to raise awareness. And so that's how I got into it. Just got guided to former feds. It was amazing.
I'm very appreciative and grateful for the journeys that each of you have lived and the experiences that you're able to bring to conversations like this as we penetrate the veil of hallucination that exists over so much of the developed world and so much of what we would call the global north, the Western realms, North America, the USA. As Mr. Andy said a moment ago, these things happened on American soil. These were American doctors and American institutions, I believe, acting no differently than those doctors who would have been at the direction of one Joseph Mengele just under 100 years ago. So if we can, and to bring this around, Miss Gail, I'd like to ask, what has been the growth of former feds, since we first connected several months back, and how is this mission progressing forward? Miss Gail, I do apologize. We've had an audio interruption.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Much better, yes. I'm sorry.
Okay,
We
awesome.
were
No
unable to
problem.
hear your answer.
Oh, good old Zoom. So, so I just wanted to set the stage for everybody too. This is happening in every state in the United States, and we have a Twitter Spaces that we hold every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eyewitnesses to COVID related crimes speak out. And we're finding that this isn't an attack on the entire Western world. So we're hearing stories from Canada and Europe and Australia. We had this last Saturday a woman who had been attending our Twitter Spaces for months spoke up, and she's from Poland. And she said the first thing she said was, "I learned English so I could speak to you and tell you that my mom was killed." And it kind of tore my heart. But so it's happening in the West. It's a very much a coordinated attack on the Western world. And so just like us alone, Charlene is in New Jersey, David is in Georgia, me and Andy are in Texas, and we have stories from every single state. And so we have grown exponentially I mean, since we last talked even. And we are now working on some, we have 110 cases picked up by attorneys that are filing individual lawsuits. I think they're killing it in New Jersey. They're just, they all are just, they filed to preserve their statutes, and they're looking at they're leaving no rock unturned when it comes to litigation there. And we just announced our second annual Halt Hospital Homicide Rally that's going to be held in Houston, May 31st and June 1st. And people can go to halthospitalhomicide.com if they want to get tickets to that or attend that. Mickey Willis is going to screen his new movie Bad Medicine after the rally, which will be cool. We got great speakers. Just go out there and you can see everything that's happening. And so yeah, so we've grown quite a bit. The task force has grown. We are getting a lot of, with the attention comes the trolls and the things too. So we have to be careful. But yeah, it's been growing. And I don't know if you maybe want to touch on some of the commonalities in these stories. I think David, there's some very interesting things in David's story with regard to his son. His son was 13 years old, disabled, and he was with him the whole time. I would love for him to tell you about the things that his son was denied. And his son was just this beautiful, if you see any videos about it, he was this beautiful boy who absolutely loved life. Absolutely loved life. And they snuffed out a doctor that he trusted, and I hope you don't mind me speaking for you, David, but a doctor that they trusted at the end of all of this is the doctor that killed him, a doctor that he loved, Dr. Brooks. And it was at a Scottish Rite hospital, if I remember correctly, David. And they trusted this place, and medications that he normally had for his disabilities, he was not allowed to have because it wasn't protocol. And I would like David to tell you how the doctors treated them and how they treated his son and some of the last things his son said to him. Can you do that, David? Because people need to hear this.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. I mean, they treated us like garbage. They treated him like garbage. It's just garbage. We, day one, we walked in to the TICU, and as soon as he walked in, we asked for some food and water. I mean, we got there early in the morning. He hadn't eaten. We knew he had COVID. The day prior, we took him to the emergency room, but he wasn't really feeling well, so he didn't eat the night before, really. So when we got there, he was starving. We asked for food and water. The very first thing they said was, we can't give him any food and water just in case of intubation. On day one, they were just ready to intubate him. I mean, they denied his food and water. We were there for 4 days, and each day I asked for food and water, and each day it was denied, or they're saying they're going to get to it. I asked for vitamins. That was denied. They said that we had to speak to the disease and infection expert first before we can give him that. I asked for ivermectin. That was denied. They said the only thing they can give him is remdesivir. I challenged the remdesivir. I challenged everything. And I also asked for monoclonal. That was denied. They said that it was only for outpatients, even though we bought him the day prior to the emergency room. And that's when we found out he had COVID. And when we found out, they just unplugged all his leads, sent us home. And I mean, they starved him to death, really. I think that was the biggest thing that killed him. He kept talking about how hungry he was, how thirsty he was. I was there the whole time. I did his respiratory treatments, and I will never forget, he was like, "Oh, when can we eat?" I was like, "Don't worry, Eris. After this treatment, we'll get you something to eat." was done with treatment. I asked for food, and they're like, no, can't give it to him. Just in case of intubation. And his Eric's response is, oh man, so hungry. Really fucked up what they did. You know, you can bamboozle me with the medication, the treatment or whatever, but to deny food and water just made no sense to me. He starved to death. That's one of the reasons that killed him was starvation. I mean, one of his last words before he was intubated was, it's okay, let's go eat. It's okay, let's go eat. And that was the last time I spoke to him. That was the last time I saw him awake. And then shortly after, you know, yeah, they blasted him with so much oxygen, his throat swelled up like a balloon. I mean, they broke his shoulder in the process of flipping him over on his stomach. And yeah, I saw it all. I saw his stats slowly drop. I went out and asked the nurse, hey, he's dying. What can we do? They said nothing, absolutely nothing. And then it wasn't until we started going into cardiac arrest is when they fucking did anything. I had to see him. I saw the nurse jump on him. I saw them do the CPR. I saw the blood come out of his mouth. Saw all the color fade from him. And he turned blue. And that was it. It really messes you up to see your child die in front of you, to know that you were powerless to do anything, to know that you had everything you needed at home to treat him. All you needed was a little oxygen. That's the only thing we didn't have. And even when I went there, I fought the doctor that came in because he wanted to put him on face full of oxygen and blast him with pressure. And I said, we're not doing that because you're going to make him worse. We're going to make him worse. They didn't listen. They did it anyways. And then when he came back in to check his blood gas, I asked him, how was it? He looked at me and said, not good. And I went off on him. I said, I fucking told you this would happen. I fucking told you you would make him worse. You know what he did? He put his head down in shame and walked the hell right out. And then he decided to take the mask off and do what I suggested to do from the beginning, which was just a little bit of oxygen. And I mean, this all happened at Scottish Rite Children's Hospital of Atlanta. And what makes it worse is, like Gail said, you know, the whole time we were there, we were waiting for Dr. Brooks. We're like, you know what? Dr. Brooks will be here. She will save him. She will do everything she can. And as soon as she walked in, I asked if we can give him ivermectin, which honestly wasn't even, honestly, it was just the food and water. I really believe if he had food and water, he could have pulled through, but I was just so distracted with everything else. But I asked for ivermectin. The very first thing she said was, it's not part of FDA protocol. All those doctors hid behind the protocol. And I challenged them on everything. They said, we can't give him ivermectin. I was like, why not? It's approved by the NIH. Oh, well, it's not approved by the CDC. There's two conflicting opinions. Can't give it to him. You know, they're like, we can give him remdesivir. I was like, well, can you show me the data that proves remdesivir works? They all said there was no data. No data. And I was like, well, if there's no data on remdesivir, why can't we try ivermectin? Well, because it's not part of FDA COVID protocol. I mean, you truly are powerless in the hospitals. You really are. All those people who think they're awake or red pilled, that, you know, I'm smart, I'm knowledgeable, I know everything that's going on in the world. I thought that too. I didn't get the shot or anything. But when you walk into the hospital, when you have no choice, when your child is dependent on the hospital, or if you get injured or you're sick, where the hell are you going to go? You can just roll the dice and hope that you're not going to get murdered or your loved ones ain't going to get murdered. Because I'm just tired of telling my story when everyone just takes so light of the situation. Time and time again, I've heard, oh, that's so sad. Thanks for the heads up. It's like, gee, well, I'm glad my son could get murdered so you can feel safe. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, David. You're good, David. And this is why we have to take action, because, you know, David is right. Like, you know, we're fighting to get to get accountability. We're fighting to end this. We're fighting to protect patients' rights to have what, just even the doctor-patient relationship. We're fighting for a lot of things. We're fighting for criminal accountability and civil accountability, but we need everyone to fight with us. We can't do this ourselves. There's 1.6 million people out there that that had someone murdered in a hospital, because 1.6 million people died in the hospitals and were tagged with COVID, and you can bet your butt they have some of the 25 commonalities that are out on chbmp.org. And so on that regard, we need people to fight. Like David said, listen to our stories do serve as a warning. All of us thought we knew what was up. We did know what was up, but we were helpless to help. I mean, we just were. And so they've you may have a plan, but you haven't practiced your plan. The hospitals have practiced their plan to kill you 1.6 million times, and it's still counting. So people need to stand up. Even people this hasn't affected yet. This should outrage you. Write your legislators and tell them, find out who's taking big pharma money and get them the hell out of your government. Write them, put them on the spot not to take that money, right? Raise awareness about these homicides that are happening. This is outrageous. The number of, there you go, our rally site. Last year we thought maybe 100 people would show up at our rally. 550 people showed up at the Alamo. And so this is we're going to raise awareness. We're going to get accountability, but we need your help. We need everyone. If we all stood up, if whistleblowers came forward, there's whistleblowers in these hospitals because it's still happening. We have a whistleblower program. If you're a whistleblower, reach out to me, gail.seiler@formerfedsgroup.org. Reach out to me. We need whistleblowers. We need somebody who can bring us the smoking gun as to how this happened in every single hospital. We need whistleblowers to show that they knew, that that these administrators knew what they were doing, because we want to hold them criminally accountable, and we will hold them criminally accountable and civilly accountable where appropriate. We're not going away. We're not going to stop. The victim group, the eyewitnesses to these crimes against humanity in the name of COVID, they're growing. Every time we do a spaces, y'all know this. Every time we do a Twitter spaces, we hear the same thing. Every time we go on a podcast, we hear the same thing. People reach out to us and they say, I didn't know anyone else was out there fighting. Like Charlene said when she saw that Epic Times interview, I didn't know anybody else was fighting. And it grows and it grows and it grows. And we're going to keep growing it until we are many tens of thousands strong. But we need you. We need every single person, whether this happened to you or not. We need you to get mad about it.
Could I add something to that? So I have this favorite quote. Justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are. So it's one of the best quotes that really just says it all. And so, I don't wish anything on anyone, but before it affects you, they should be standing side by side with us to stop it so it doesn't.
That's right. There's always there's always another variant. There's always another disease. There's, people aren't even aware of, the treaty that goes in effect in May if we don't do anything, giving the WHO such power, people need to people need to become very aware and start fighting back.
At the end of the day, each of you are battling not only for accountability, but for the restoration of do no harm
Hmm.
in the medical system worldwide, the restoration of what health care is really supposed to be, what wellness care is really supposed to be. This world was always purposed, I think, and was designed by God to provide the maximum amount of health, the maximum amount of enjoyment and provision and safety and enthrallment of the creation, which I think is all of us here in the world. And this has been severely inverted in a way that is certainly cosmic and is difficult, I think, to describe. And so I want to say thank you very much to each of you for sharing your story, for being courageous enough to do that, come out to the fore. I know that it may get hollow at times, but it certainly is not hollow coming from us over here at the QMP. Gail, I guess is my final question. I'd like to close out on where can people go to get involved with you all? How can people contact you? For these light bulb moments where individuals are suddenly spurred to action or they're moved by some force of nature. Where can they come to connect with you all?
Yep. So they can go to chbmp.org to look at the stories that are out there or submit their own story. And they can connect if they, whistleblowers, attorneys, if more attorneys, they can also reach out to us either at gail.seiler@formerfedsgroup.org or FDA death protocol at formerfedsgroup.org. They can go there, share the commonalities, share the stories, share on social media as much as possible about these stories. If you don't have a story, help us share. If you have a story or somebody who has a story, put the story in the database. They're very powerful. And when we go to talk to legislators in a state, we like to show them we have tons of stories. When we go to talk to lawyers, we are like, look there's 100 stories in Texas or California or whatever. We want to bury them in these stories. We want to bury the world in these stories so that they can't deny it's happening, or it happened and it is happening. So and it all the way back to if you've got a story about a nursing home murder at the start of COVID, a protocol death, a shot injury or shot death. If it's a COVID related crime against humanity, we want to know about it. We want to document it. We want to document whistleblower stories. We have a whistleblower protection program. Just connect with us somehow. We have support groups every night of the week. Our Twitter spaces. We have all these mechanisms for getting the word out and getting your story out and helping to fight for accountability. We're going to keep fighting. David deserves accountability for his son, for the murder of his son, and I believe Dr. Brooks has to be held accountable because they trusted her.
Indeed, and accountability must come, I think, for humanity to be restored spiritually to any level of balance. There's a quote that actually comes from a children's show that my little one has watched in the past, and it says that only justice can bring peace. And that's exactly the situation I think that we find ourselves in as humanity. And I very seriously appreciate genuinely the journey and the actions that each of you have been on and have been about over these last many months and going into years now to ensure that type of justice is accomplished. Thank you for joining us again today. For the audience out there, this is SG Anon. I'll be back with each of you again on the Q News Patriots soon. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.